Mamacita. Viva la raza.
Best of the Best, Episode 2. This time we're looking at some of my favourite Eddie Guerrero matches, and matches that I think show Eddie in the best light possible. Last time we looked at Bret Hart, and after putting that video together, I decided to let the Wrestling Bios Patreon community decide who should get featured next. From this point on, it'll always be my Patreon supporters deciding who should get a Best of the Best video, so if you want to add your suggestions and vote in the Best of the Best poll, the Patreon link will be in this video description. So let's get started. This is going to be a good one, and I can't wait to talk about my favourite Eddie Guerrero matches of all time. Let's get the obvious one out of the way first. It's obvious for good reason though. Eddie Guerrero vs Rey Mysterio, Halloween Havoc 1997. I've had the pleasure of covering this match twice in the past, once for its own dedicated video, and again for the Halloween Havoc 1997 Reliving the War review. Many consider this the greatest WCW Cruiserweight match of all time, and that really says a lot, seeing as the Cruiserweights of WCW were legitimate show stealers. The Cruiserweight Championship was up for grabs at Halloween Havoc. Eddie was putting his belt on the line while Rey Mysterio was putting his mask on the line. Rey stated that Eric Bischoff originally booked him to lose at Halloween Havoc and therefore he would take off his mask after the final bell had rung. But Eddie went to bat for Mysterio, saying it wasn't the time nor the place for Mysterio to unmask in WCW. Bischoff agreed to let Eddie lose. Mysterio dodged a bullet while gaining the Cruiserweight title, and I always thought this little bit of backstory helps the match stand out. There's a lot of respect in that wrestling ring at Halloween Havoc 97. The action in the ring is quick, it's precise, and it's absolutely breathtaking. It's a match that made the big boys of WCW look second rate. WCW programming at the time was all about the NWO and the inevitable clash between Hollywood Hogan and Sting at Starrcade later in the year. But Rey and Eddie proved that the smaller guys could be extremely entertaining too, if not more so. I watch this match pretty often. It's a go-to match that I can recite move for move. These two had plenty more matches in World Championship Wrestling and beyond, but Halloween Havoc 97 stands out as its own true classic. Eddie Guerrero was known for having a lot of heart. He may have lied, he may have cheated, but Eddie Guerrero could also dig deeper than most when dealt a tough hand. If you want to see the heart of Eddie Guerrero on display inside a wrestling ring, look no further than Judgment Day 2004. Eddie Guerrero vs John Bradshaw Layfield for Eddie's WWE Championship. In the run-up to Judgment Day, JBL had been patrolling the border all by himself while looking for immigrants trying to sneak into America. John Bradshaw Layfield was the ultimate bastard heading into this one, but things got really personal when JBL caused Eddie's mother to suffer a heart attack during a house show. So with this in mind, you knew it was going to be a physical matchup between these two. The match went for just under 25 minutes and Eddie gave the babyface performance of a lifetime here. Many will remember this one for the absolutely devastating chair shot JBL gives Eddie and the insane blade job afterwards. It's truly horrific and it makes you gasp when you see it. Even on repeat viewings, it doesn't become any less shocking. But there's so much more to this match than just the chair shot and the blade job. JBL comes across as a real bully as he uses his size advantage. Eddie would then make a lot of comebacks to show how much fight he had in him. And after the chair shot, Eddie just wouldn't stay down as he kept coming back for more and more while viewers were left stunned and shocked at Eddie's will to win. It really is the most beautiful violence you'll see in a wrestling ring. Many criticised the DQ finish, but I think it fitted well into the story. Eddie had enough and he attacked Bradshaw with his WWE title with the referee in full view. And after the bell, Eddie continued to attack his opponent, even giving Bradshaw a chair shot followed by the frog splash. It's a war, an all-out war where Eddie wouldn't stop fighting, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching this one again in preparation for this video. Eddie Guerrero vs Dean Malenko, Hostile City Showdown 1995. Eddie had a few battles with Dean Malenko over the years and they both elevated each other in ECW while fighting over the ECW TV title. This match right here, taking place on the 15th of April 1995, is nothing short of brilliant. Eric Bischoff was paying close attention to ECW in 1995. Monday Nitro was going to launch later in the year and Eazy-E needed a lot of new, exciting talent to give his new television show a fresh feel when it eventually debuted on TNT. Eddie and Dean tore it up in the ECW arena in a match that ended up going to a time limit draw, and I really do like to believe that it was this match that got Eddie and Dean recognized, and it was this match that helped elevate both men to the next chapter in their careers, a chapter that was much more financially lucrative. I will admit there are a few issues with this match though. The crowd seems a bit distracted, it's a bit slow to start off due to both guys wanting to pace themselves, and in general there's a lot of people in the arena who frankly didn't care all that much for technical wrestling and they were more concerned about all things hardcore. But Eddie and Dean end up forcing the crowd to pay attention as their in-ring work was so undeniably good. The final stretch of this bout is fantastic, it's almost like a big payoff for fans who pay close attention to the earlier portion of the match. It's a brilliant performance from both men and it gave fans an early glimpse into the future of pro wrestling. Latino Heat had some fantastic matches against Edge over the years, but I'd like to point out their match from the September 26, 2002 episode of Smackdown. Edge and Eddie had worked together at SummerSlam and Unforgiven. Edge won the first pay-per-view match while Eddie won the second, so the two met in the ring days after Unforgiven to go at it one more time. Just over 15 minutes were spared for the match and it exceeded everyone's expectations. This is a no disqualification encounter where the second half of the bout plays out more like a typical ladder match. The spots both men come up with while utilising the ladder are pretty wild, with Eddie's sunset flip powerbomb being an absolute highlight. As the two competitors kept upping the ante with more and more ladder spots, the fans in attendance started getting behind Eddie. Keep in mind that Eddie was the heel here and the main purpose of this whole rivalry was to elevate Edge. Fans in the arena and even fans at home could tell that Eddie was doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this match though, and Latino Heat ended up getting cheered for his efforts. Both men worked very hard and I'm sure they woke up feeling very sore too. In the end, Eddie came out of this one looking great even in defeat. And hey, that Edge fella ended up doing pretty well for himself too, so it's all good. It's a difficult match to sell people on just by talking about it. You really need to watch this one for yourself, and remember, it's taking place on a regular episode of Smackdown. I feel Edge and Eddie far surpassed their pay-per-view encounters with this one, and it's the best match they ever had together. Eddie Guerrero vs Chavo Guerrero Jr., WCW Great American Bash 1998. I covered this event for Reliving the War and I said in that review that Eddie vs Chavo was one of the most underrated matches of 1998. Eddie had mistreated his nephew for quite some time leading up to this event. Chavo ended up losing his mind and it was almost like he wanted his uncle to punish him just to get a reaction. And all this would lead to Chavo going through his crazy phase, which in turn made Eddie a little afraid of his nephew. It was almost like Eddie created a monster. This match is very character driven, which in turn makes it a very entertaining match indeed. Chavo and Eddie were very familiar with each other in the ring of course, so that part of the match was easy for these guys. When you add in Chavo going nuts and Eddie having to make some quick decisions in regards to how to handle this lunatic, it just makes for a very fun and enjoyable showdown. I'm also going to include their Bash at the Beach 1998 match here. This one happened a month afterwards and this one was a hair versus hair match. The shenanigans are turned way up in this match and there's definitely way more focus on the unhinged Chavo Guerrero, but it's still very entertaining and I think it's a sin that these matches aren't talked about more often. Eddie defeated Chavo in the hair versus hair match and Chavito had no problems cutting his own hair while Eddie looked on in complete bewilderment. Eddie defeating Brock Lesnar at No Way Out 2004 created one of the greatest feel-good moments in pro wrestling history. Before watching this match though, I think it's mandatory that you check out Eddie's addiction promo that happened earlier in the week on SmackDown. Brock Lesnar brought up Eddie's issues with addiction while hyping up this match, and Eddie had no issues addressing his demons. Guerrero told Brock, yes, he is an addict. 3 years before this match was set to take place, he got carried out of an arena and straight into a rehabilitation isolation facility, but that was just the beginning. Eddie lost his job, he lost his wife, he lost his kids, and he lost himself. Eddie felt he disgraced his race and his family, but Eddie woke up and he made the decision to live. Eddie earned his way back into the ring, he continued to earn his children's respect, and day by day, Eddie continued to earn his life back. Winning the WWE belt would be Eddie's way of telling his family he's sorry. He can provide a better life for his family if he beats Brock at No Way Out, and that WWE belt symbolizes Latino Heat's new addiction. Eddie said he gets high from the energy fans give him every night when he wrestles, he gets high from telling his family that he's making changes, and Eddie gets a great deal of pleasure out of telling people who didn't believe in him that they were all wrong. Eddie reiterated that yes, he is an addict, but that means he'll do whatever it takes to get the WWE title and get his high at No Way Out. It's probably my favourite Eddie Guerrero promo of all time. The delivery, the passion, it's absolutely off the charts. Going into the match, you felt that Eddie really could win the championship. There was only 1 month to go before WrestleMania, and Brock Lesnar was having a lot of issues with Raw's Bill Goldberg. Lesnar versus Goldberg seemed like a lock-in for Mania 20, and that meant the WWE belt could go to a different wrestler in the run-up to WrestleMania. With a little help from Goldberg, Eddie ended up beating Brock at No Way Out. The celebration after the win is filled with joy, and it really does make you smile no matter how many times you watch it. And I truly believe the promo that Eddie cut on Smackdown really helped fans understand where Eddie was coming from and how important it was for Guerrero to win that championship. Eddie did have a lot of problems on his road to the WWE belt. He had to overcome all sorts of issues that went all the way back to his WCW days. So this match here at No Way Out serves as Eddie Guerrero's redemption. It's a great match and a wonderful story. When talking specifically about WCW, I think Eddie's first true brilliant match happened not on pay-per-view, but on an early episode of WCW Nitro. Eddie faced Chris Benoit on the 16th of October 1995. It was only his second match on WCW Nitro. The show itself had only been on the air for a few weeks, so for many viewers who didn't follow ECW or Japanese wrestling, this match was almost revolutionary. No doubt, the Wild Pegasus and Black Tiger match that took place the following year in New Japan was better, but I feel this TV match was more important when considering both men's future in World Championship Wrestling and beyond. Benoit and Eddie were given 8 minutes here, which doesn't sound long, but do remember Nitro was only 1 hour back then, and man, did these two make the most out of those 8 minutes. Chris Benoit is very vicious in this bout, from this devastating powerbomb right here to the Dragon Suplex that ended the match. But Eddie got to show off his in-ring abilities too, with high-flying aerial attacks and incredible counter moves. This is a great showcase match for both men. It's easily accessible too, so you'll have no problems finding the match online. It's a match that not only sets the tone for WCW's incredible mid-card matches during the Nitro era, but just like Guerrero vs Malenko in ECW, it sets the tone for what wrestling would become in the future. Eddie got fired from the WWE in 2001, as Eddie touched upon during his in-ring promo with Brock Lesnar before No Way Out 2004. The firing was what made Eddie realise that he needed help. The WWE would bring Eddie back in April the next year, and he'd end up having his career-defining final run within the company. But during those few months when Eddie was gone, he still wrestled a lot of matches against many talented people. The Eddie Guerrero vs CM Punk match gets talked about a lot, but I actually think his match against Low Ki was a lot better. You will have to put up with low production values when watching this one, but the entire match is available online via the Title Match Wrestling YouTube channel. Eddie wrestles a match here that, quite simply, he wouldn't be allowed to wrestle in WWE. The counters and reversals from both men are incredible. The two build upon their offense, with each guy trying to outdo the other. And although Low Ki seems to have a reputation for his backstage antics, he was all professional in the ring during this match with Eddie Guerrero. Eddie wrote in his book that it was a very humbling experience going back to the Indies, and he wasn't even sure if he wanted to keep wrestling after getting fired. The only way to find out was to get in the ring again. The promoter here, Jack Sabbath, wanted a draw for this match, and Eddie insisted on putting Low Ki over, something that the promoter and Low Ki were extremely grateful for. Eddie decided after this very match that he wanted to continue wrestling. He got a lot of offers from other indie promotions after losing the Low Ki, so it's a very important showdown right here that could have potentially have been Eddie Guerrero's final match. Eddie had some great matches against Kurt Angle during the glory days of WWE Smackdown. I was almost going to choose their April 14th, 2005 tournament match from Smackdown TV, but instead I'm going to go with WrestleMania 20, Guerrero vs Angle for Eddie's WWE Championship. After Eddie won the championship back at No Way Out, a few fans might have been worried that Latino Heat was just keeping the belt warm until the next pay-per-view. WrestleMania 20 was just around the corner and Eddie was facing a tough opponent in Kurt Angle, but Eddie was able to leave Madison Square Garden still holding his WWE Championship. Kurt Angle looked incredible at WrestleMania 20. He dominated a fair portion of this match with nothing but sheer wrestling skill while Eddie wrestled from underneath. Fan support for Guerrero was at an all-time high during this period and it was the fans willing Eddie on to continue this match. But at times it looked like Guerrero was just plain outclassed by the Olympic gold medalist. There's some serious high drama in this one when Kurt kicks out of a frog splash and Eddie finds himself in the ankle lock multiple times. But the cunning WWE champion had a plan. Eddie knew Kurt was going to go for the ankle lock one more time after doing some serious damage. So Guerrero loosened up his boot and he easily escaped Kurt's second attempt. This leads to a quick roll up and a surprise victory for Eddie. And the crowd completely lose their mind for the finish. It was pulled off so well, excuse the pun. Not only was Eddie Guerrero a fantastic wrestler, he was also a smart wrestler who would lie, cheat and steal to gain the upper hand. Eddie was well known for outsmarting his opponents while using underhanded tactics, and he got to do it on the biggest stage the WWE has to offer. Mania 20 was an absolutely stacked show with a lot of marquee matches, so it does say a lot when Eddie and Kurt went out there and had one of the best matches on the entire card. Eddie Guerrero was a show-stealing performer no matter what company he worked for. To prove this fact is undeniably true, Eddie walked into an NWO pay-per-view and he had the best match on the card against Sean Waltman. Sean was, of course, wrestling as Syxx at the time. During this era, ladder matches didn't happen in WCW. Waltman's buddy Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels made the match type popular in the WWF during the New Generation era, but before that, you'd have to go all the way back to the 1987 Great American Bash to find a ladder match in Jim Crockett Promotions. The decision to pair up Syxx and Eddie Guerrero for this match at Sold Out was a smart one. You've got two fearless high flyers right here with a ton of in-ring experience, and two guys who wanted to put on the best match of the evening. The story was a very simple one. Syxx had a thing for stealing championship belts, and one of the belts he stole was Eddie Guerrero's US title. In order to get his belt back, Eddie would have to climb up a ladder and retrieve it himself, but if Syxx got there first, then Waltman would become the real US champion. Now, there have been better ladder matches before and after this one. I'd even say Eddie's ladder match against Rob Van Dam on Raw surpasses the Sold Out match, but I wanted to highlight Sold Out because it shows that Eddie really was a show-stealing performer. He walked into Sold Out without any entrance music, he didn't look like he fit into this NWO pay-per-view at all, but the one match everyone remembers from Sold Out 97 is this ladder match right here. It's slowly losing its status as the years go on. As mentioned, it has been surpassed in terms of in-ring action, but it's noteworthy for bringing ladder matches back to WCW, and it's noteworthy for being another great performance from Eddie Guerrero. A bit of an odd choice here, but this next match has a great moment followed by a great match. On the 1st of August 2002 episode of Smackdown, The Rock was scheduled to face Edge in the main event. Stephanie McMahon came down to the ring and she announced that Rock actually won't be facing Edge on this night. Rather, these two are going to team up to face two other wrestlers that Stephanie just poached from Eric Bischoff. Stephanie then announced that Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero had joined the Smackdown roster, and these two were going to wrestle Rock and Edge in the Smackdown main event. The reaction the announcement got was really good, but I remember watching this and being very curious about how all this would play out. It was hard to imagine Benoit and Guerrero beating Rock and Edge in this main event showdown, but that's exactly what happened. It's a very well paced tag team match here that has enough fast paced action at the beginning of the bout with a good slow build towards Rock's hot tag coming to the end of the bout. This of course is nothing new and it sounds like standard fare when it comes to tag team matches, but these four had such good timing that you still sit on the edge of your seat as the match plays out. You watch this one back while wondering how SmackDown would be affected by the arrival of Benoit and Guerrero, and you weren't so sure what this meant for the Intercontinental Championship neither, seeing as Benoit was the current title holder. So it all makes for a very fascinating matchup that was just as intriguing as it was exciting. Rock ends up topping out the Benoit's crossface. He took his eye off his opponent for just a moment when Brock Lesnar showed up. The Rock had no choice but to give it up as the Beast looks on, and so Guerrero and Benoit's arrival to Smackdown was a successful one. Smackdown would become home for Eddie Guerrero and indeed Chris Benoit. When you watched Smackdown, you knew you were in for some awesome in-ring action thanks to these two, along with Edge, Chavo, Mysterio and Kurt Angle. These competitors, known as the Smackdown Syxx among wrestling fans, would elevate the blue brand to new heights. Eddie Guerrero vs John Cena from the September 11th, 2003 edition of Smackdown is a match that shows Eddie's creativity away from the ring. This one's a Latino Heat parking lot brawl and the rules are simple. Competitors can use a bunch of parked automobiles to inflict as much damage as possible. These kind of matches aren't really my thing, and I remember going into this one with very low expectations, but Eddie and Cena beat the crap out of each other in this match and it turned out to be pretty entertaining. Eddie could get down and dirty with the best of them. He could discard his insane wrestling abilities and just straight up fight when he needed to. And this match shows us that no matter what the circumstances, Eddie Guerrero could make the most out of any situation he was put in. I do have a small complaint though, and that's the piped in sound effects used during this parking lot brawl. The WWE went a little overboard here and it really can take you out of the match, but the bumps Guerrero and Cena take during this bout do make up for it. This is another match that kinda gets forgotten about. Look it up when you get a chance and have some fun with it. It really is an entertaining brawl that surpasses expectations, seeing it was part of a regular Smackdown broadcast. Picking my favourite Eddie Guerrero matches for this video was extremely tough because he's had so many. This video could have easily been filled with Eddie vs Dean Malenko matches, Eddie vs Benoit matches, or even Eddie vs Rey Mysterio matches because there's just so many to choose from. Eddie had great matches in ECW, even better matches in WCW. He went on to the WWF and made an impact as one of the Radicals, and when he got fired he went to the Independents and he still put on awesome performances. Eddie's career was then cut short during his most successful run in any company he's ever worked for. We were on the brink of seeing what I believe was an ultimate dream match, Shawn Michaels vs Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania 22. But Eddie was taken away from us way too soon and we lost one of the greatest of all time when Eddie passed away. Eddie leaves behind a catalogue of excellent matches though, and for that reason he will never be forgotten. And I know you guys have your own favourites, so please share them in the comments. As mentioned in the Bret Hart video, the purpose of this Best of the Best series is to help new fans find great matches from superstars of the past. I get so many comments from people who are just discovering old school wrestling through things like Reliving the War and other videos on this channel. So let everyone know your favourite Eddie matches in the comments so new fans can find the absolute best of the best. If you want to help shape this series and decide who gets featured in future Best of the Best videos, please check out the Wrestling Bios Patreon page. Thanks for watching this one guys, I do hope you enjoyed it, and please take care.
Mama.